Hello, and welcome to Stories Across Borders. Here we discuss stories told across a range of different media, books, movies, games, you name it. The only rule is we can only discuss things in terms of the writing. Anything like acting, animation, mechanics, etc. is out unless it relates directly to how the story is being told. I am Daniel Radford, author, man full of regret, and also your host. And today I'm joined once more by John Kernan, who is my frequent co-host, a good friend, and a right bastard.
Hi, I'm bad for you, and you should stay away from me, but I'm not going to stay away from you. Also, I crawled in through your window, and I love you, but I don't. You should stay away from me. I'm bad.
Fuck off. Why is he all those things? Oh, you see, because we have a real special two-for-one deal for you today, people, for our romance cycle. Although I struggle to say that either of these things qualify. Because today we're tackling both Twilight and, of all things, 50 Shades of Grey. And this asshole, as a side note, managed to get all of his info on 50 Shades from Cliff Notes and video essays. I watched the movie.
I wasn't allowed to watch it. I was told
Unbelievable.
no way is that thing playing in this house.
So despite this technically being his suggestion, he managed to get through this without watching the movie. It's 2 hours long. I'm I'm glad I did that though instead of reading the book.
Oh God,
Because, at least the movie's got a good soundtrack.
oh man, reading the book would be like that's like a masochism challenge.
Jokes aside, I suppose I did willingly commit to doing this episode, so I won't be too hard on him. But boy, did I suffer for my art with this one, and I have thoughts.
It's good. That means the art's gonna be beautiful and from the heart.
It's gonna be something.
Because art is always beautiful and from the heart, right? Even if it starts out as a fan fiction of something that's already kind of cringe and then goes off the deep end from there.
Oh shit, let's get into this one. And
Yeah, I honestly, I've been looking forward to this episode. I'm gonna have a lot of things to say about Twilight, and I want to preface this by telling anybody who thinks I'm being overly harsh. I am probably going to be pretty harsh because this episode is talking about the romance of Twilight, and that's one of the parts of Twilight that I think is bad. To
yeah,
be clear, I had fun watching these movies. I was enjoying myself, and for one thing, there's actually a shockingly good amount of cinematography in these movies when the vampires aren't sparkling. But like and there's a lot of like little funny moments. So I enjoyed myself. I just think the romances are bad.
I've actually read the books, all of them, even the weird the novella that is like between like going on at the same time as Eclipse. Yeah, I did so as a teenager because they were bought for me as a gift, and I felt obligated to do it.
Oh, that's cruel.
My maternal grandmother clearly did not know me well. Anyway, though, getting into things, for reasons that will probably become apparent as we go on, I actually think, even though it's the spin-off as such, I actually think I'd like to start us with 50 Shades of Grey, which is a sentence I never expected to say.
I think that's fair. 'Cause 50 Shades well, 50 Shades of Grey is more extreme,
It
for
is,
one thing.
and there's a rant I'm gonna go on at the end of this, probably, that I think leads very nicely into Twilight.
Let's go.
So let's just get into the meat of the issue. This movie is incredibly disingenuous to BDSM relationships. And I assume the books are also. And I think that is a really important starting point. Because most couples who engage in this sort of thing are doing so in a way that is healthy, because both of them are at the very least curious.
I had no idea what this was going to become.
It's not a way to work out your mommy issues and past trauma by hurting the women who are close to you. At least it should be.
You know who does that? Serial killers.
Yes.
You got me looking
A bunch of other people, and like,
This time,
I have qualms with
no
romanticizing that
no
kind
punishments.
of behavior. Because
and
it paints a
no more
picture of
secrets.
something that is supposed to be safe and consensual and healthy in a very dangerous light, and can give a lot of very wrong impressions on both sides of the camp. Both the people who are interested and those that aren't. And I think it is unfair to both sides because of that.
Yeah, it kind of really feels like the story is telling you, okay, but like they do like each other and they do eventually both agree to all these things or whatever, so it's fine. No. The path we took to get there is not okay.
And the thing is, like, the story has a very dangerous understanding of consent, because it is paying lip service to consent, you know? You can leave anytime you want to, yeah. You can say no, I won't do anything you don't want me to. Like, all that is good stuff in theory. Like, that is stuff that should be being said. But it's kind of lip service when the actions don't follow what is being said. And that's the problem with consent in this story, is that even though it is being presented as this is all fully consensual between adults who know what they're getting into, anyone who wants you to sign an NDA about your relationship does not have your best interests at heart. And signing a contract about being sexually subservient sounds like a really dangerous thing to do, especially when you're dealing with an unstable and controlling man who has groomed you into being his submissive and may well take things too far or do things without your consent down the road.
Yeah, and I'm inherently against a contract anywhere of that sort for those kinds of things, because you can say that signing the contract is consenting, but like what it actually is signing away your consent. And I really hate the idea of anybody being able to make one decision in a single moment that takes away their ability to choose from there on.
Well, the thing is, I don't think that, I highly doubt. Now, I'm not an expert, but I am fairly confident that contract could not possibly be legally binding.
No, definitely not. I don't think you can't sign away your humanitarian rights, I don't think.
Yeah, like, even if she had signed the contract, she could say no at any time. That's not the problem. The problem is, if she did say no, and he did things to her anyway, it absolutely would be used against her in court. Not because it was legitimately binding, but because it casts things in shades of grey, and it's fucked.
It's pretty fucked up.
That's not how consent works.
I had no idea
all that
what this was gonna become.
all
I don't see how
a
this
document
can
like
work.
that is fodder for his lawyers to use against you.
You're just
And
gonna
I
stand there
don't,
gawking.
I refuse to believe
Yes.
a well-educated billionaire wouldn't know that.
Yeah,
This time,
Christian
no
Grey
rules.
is
no
a
punishments,
bit of a low-key monster.
and
There are
No more
worse people out
secrets.
there. He's awful.
Yeah, he's an asshole and a creep. Like,
Huge creep. A manipulative, grooming creep.
yeah, from the onset, he has like a really uncomfortable vibe, right? Down to like even though it was helping her and her friend, even the fact that he surreptitiously steals the interview questions from Anna as she's leaving and then sends them to her later is kind of like
Do you think you're the first
not a
woman
great sign.
who's tried
And
to
then
save him?
within days of meeting her, he's already stalked her to her place of work.
Yeah. It's like a parasocial relationship almost in inverted. The famous person is the one attaching themselves to the regular person. It's somehow both of the toxic sides of a potential parasocial relationship coming from the same side. He's the one with the power and the influence, but he's also the one worming his way into the other one's life.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, yeah, she is clearly attracted to him from the get-go.
Of course.
She's terrible at hiding that. She's very open book naive about that sort of thing. And that's one of the things he likes, let's be honest. He looks at her like a possession, something he wants to have from the onset. He likes that he would have power over her from his wealth, from his status, from his greater experience, all these other things that she doesn't have. And that's not good. It's like that's not a good, healthy relationship. It's
Nope.
fine for people to come from very different worlds and very different, even like economic, sex, even different power levels in terms of like influence you have and things like that. That is technically okay. But the way this is portrayed is he sees this very naive, pretty girl, and he's like, I'm going to have that. She's going to be mine. I'm going to meld her into my object that I can enjoy.
Yeah. And like you can be whatever you're into. Honestly, like the sexual dynamic he wants to have is not
Intrigued.
I mean, it's a little problematic, but it's like the smallest part of the problems with Christian Grey.
Well, like I said, there's nothing inherently wrong with a dominant submissive relationship or just BDSM in general.
I want
That
you
is
back.
okay,
I
as
had no
long as
idea
it
what
is
this was gonna
informed
become.
and consensual.
I don't see how.
Yeah,
this
but
can
what
work.
he's going for isn't really what a BDSM relationship
You're just
is
gonna
or is
stand there
supposed to be
gawking?
generally.
Yes.
No, he is a damaged person
Born
himself who is
Anastasia.
trying
This time,
to, instead of
no rules.
get help
No
and deal with his
punishments.
issues, take it
And
out on women because
no
women
more
have
secrets.
hurt him. And I'm sure that his character development is going to be that he is going to eventually process some of this and mature and be less of a creep. Surely that is where the development in the rest of the story goes. But from the isolated picture I have of the one movie, it's not a pretty picture. And it's behavior that I don't like seeing personally, and I don't think
Do you
it's
think you're
particularly
the
well
first
written to
woman
begin with.
who's tried
The
to save
dialogue
him?
is really cheesy and the characters are very cliche, yeah. But the thing that really irks me is how instead, like, he's not being portrayed by the lens that we are shown him through as a predator, and that's what he is.
It's pretty bad that besides killing people or potentially fantasizing about killing people, depending on how you interpret Psycho, or American Psycho, it's pretty bad that the biggest difference I see between Christian Grey and
Norman Bates.
God,
No,
no,
no.
not Norman Bates.
No, that's the wrong
that's
Psycho.
that's why I was getting mad because I thought of Norman Bates too, and I'm like, no.
Bateman? Is it Bateman?
Yeah, Patrick Bateman.
Yeah.
The biggest difference I see between Christian Grey and Patrick Bateman is actually just that Christian Grey is more successful and more competent at being manipulative. That's the only significant difference I see between them, and the entire movie of American Psycho is about how empty and soulless Patrick Bateman and the culture he's immersed in are.
Yeah, and like And let's be clear as well, he is being manipulative. He is like the things that he is doing are textbook manipulative behavior, showing interest in her and luring her in with, some fun experiences, expensive gifts, but keeping her at arm's length. He drip feeds her to keep her on the hook, but never lets her actually in and has a genuine intimate relationship. It is textbook manipulation.
Yeah, it come to think of it, it literally looks like fishing. Holding on, not letting go, and yet keeping it a distance and not pulling in too fast.
Bring her in, push her away. Bring her in, push her away. No, look at all this great stuff I'm doing for you. Push her away. And it's the sort of thing that messes with someone psychologically and makes them question, when they're pushed away, are they doing the wrong thing? Is it something he's doing, or is this how it's supposed to be? And it keeps them wanting more. And there's always the promise of more.
I want you back.
Without ever giving it.
I had no idea what this was going to become.
It's really weird seeing the
comparisons.
I'm not going to say too much on this because I don't want to get ahead of myself since we haven't moved on to Twilight
You're
yet.
just
But
gonna
like,
stand there gawking.
I can see some of the parallels, and the parallels actually make 50 Shades of Grey look worse to me.
This time,
Because it
No
literally
rules,
feels like somebody
punishments.
watched Twilight and only was
no more
interested in and
secrets.
enamored with the toxic parts of how Bella and Jacob, Edward's relationship starts, and then just ignored all the other stuff. Because don't get me wrong, even the quote-unquote good parts of the romance in Twilight are cheesy and mostly not well done. But, like, their relationship's not that bad. It starts from a bad place that makes Bella look really stupid for falling for him in the first place. But other than that, like, it becomes a mostly like positive relationship, at least, where even though they're both still doing some really dumb things and don't seem to know how love works, Jacob kind of cares. But how do I put this? I guess what I mean to say is all of the patterns that Christian Grey exhibits seem to be dialed up to 11 versions of the things I was like, what is happening right now? When Bella and Edward first met, that he only exhibits when they first meet, and even then at much lower levels than Christian Grey does, obviously.
All of that is true, but on top of that, he's also he treats her like a possession. Like, he is so controlling. And I mean, he enters her home and sells her belongings without her consent. He tries to dictate her behavior down to what she is allowed to eat, drink, and wear. He demands total servitude. And yes, whilst the movie does somewhat address this, it ends with them supposedly splitting up and going separate ways. And
we know there's more movies.
There's more movies. They're going to come back together. And just because we know, just through media literacy, that the story is going to end with them probably in a much healthier place, I think it's kind of a rotten relationship to the core to begin with at this point.
Yeah, the base motivations and foundations of the relationship are all toxic and rotten.
And in any other movie, this would be a thriller or a psychological horror, but is being shown through a lens of romance and being romanticized. And it's literally, I can fix him.
Yeah, also, no, you can't. Also, he's trying to fix you, and also, no, he can't. He's a monster.
Yeah, like, let's be entirely clear.
Intrigued.
It's not Anna's responsibility to help him get through his traumatic upbringing and his issues with women.
Especially not when he has all the money in the world to
I want
do
you
that.
back.
Yeah.
I had no idea what this
It's
was going
not
to become.
on her. It shouldn't
I
be
don't see
on
how
her.
this can work.
If you're in a relationship because because you
You're
feel
just gonna
like
stand there
you
gawking?
can and should
Yes.
fix a person, you are also
Come on, Anastasia.
engaging in the toxicity.
This time, no rules,
And that's
no
the thing.
punishments.
Anna is a part of the
And
toxicity, yet
no more
she's not.
secrets.
She is a victim. She's being groomed effectively, but she does play into it because she's convinced herself that she can turn this very damaged person into her ideal man, who is both emotionally available, has crazy kinky sex with her, and is a billionaire that is also very attractive. Like, she thinks she can turn him into an ideal
think you're the
version of
first
him,
woman
and that's
tried
not
to
a good
save him.
starting point for her to look into it either.
Yeah, it's bad. It's almost all the things that people joke about with like fan fiction-y, like shipping a character with the reader. It's all the things people make fun of like preteen and teenage girls for when it comes to like a lot of their romantic fantasies, but played straight and treated more seriously than I think almost any of the young girls who have those fantasies treat them.
Yeah, I mean,
It's bad.
that's the thing I keep coming back to, like, more than anything, more than the schlocky dialogue, more than the shallow characters. It's the fact that it is taking what is objectively dangerous, toxic behavior and arguably enabling that toxic behavior on both sides
Yeah,
as well.
it feels like it's trying to legitimize it.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think the end of the movie here, which I assume is the end of the first book, them seemingly going their separate ways, really does enough. It doesn't do enough to make it clear how toxic this actually is, because we know they're going to get back together. And they're going to go through, what is it, 2 more books, 2 more movies of this shit?
Maybe if they had like a true huge proper falling out and she hated him and they never saw each other again.
I mean, even, like, the thing is, even the way that happens and they have their dramatic going away from each other, where they say each other's names through the lift doors, I shit you not. It's
Oh my god.
in a way that's meant to be like a formal farewell, but it's you
That's
know.
right.
What happens is she says to him, "Show me the worst of what you want to do. I want to experience it worse." After they're in a very tense, emotionally pent up spot. It's not
I want you
good.
back.
And
I had no
he
idea
says,
what this
"Are
was going
you
to become.
sure?" Several times.
I don't see how this
I
can
don't
work.
think you're ready for this. And she insists. He says, "Okay."
You're just gonna
And
stand there
we're
gawking?
presented with a scene
Yes.
where he is like whipping her with a belt, but
Anastasia.
not great. She's in
This
tears.
time-
He's making her count
No rules,
the strikes.
no punishments,
But she can say no at any time.
no
She
more
just doesn't.
secrets.
There's so much fucked upness built into this scene because, on the one hand, he absolutely should fucking stop. She is clearly not into this at all, and for consent to be legitimate, it has to be consistent and enthusiastic, and that is clearly not what a woman in agony, in tears, not having a good time is. But he keeps doing it because he's brunette. But
You
she
think you're the first woman
doesn't.
who
She
tried to
allows
save
this
him.
to happen. Insists she wants to do this at first. Never tells him to stop. And then turns around and basically says, "That's it. This is why I'm stopping. Because you're never going to do this shit to me again. We're done." And it's like, oh, hang on.
You already knew that.
You asked him to do this. You're doing the same shit to him now that he's been doing to you the whole time.
Yeah.
It's painted in a way where it's like, oh, he went too far and he's clearly too damaged, and it's like that is true. He did go too far. He is clearly damaged. But also she enabled this to get this far. Both of them have played a part in it getting to this point. He is definitely worse because
Oh
he
yeah.
groomed her and manipulated her and built this situation up to where it is. But she has been contributing this whole time by allowing herself to be swept away by this fantasy that she will cure his issues and mold him into someone he's clearly not, instead of encouraging him to get help.
Yeah.
And again, the whole time we are looking at this, and it is it's showing us this and going, man, this is so hot, isn't it? Look at this. There's this dark, troubled, but ultimately loving relationship. Damn, isn't this steamy? It's like, this is fucked up, actually.
It doesn't even actually properly have the things that make people go, "Oh my gosh, it's bad but good maybe," that like people do about some of the already cringe like versions of dark edgy relationships. It's just bad, and it's awful because it doesn't the story is not trying to teach you a lesson, or if it does, it doesn't know what lesson it's trying to teach or how to say it, and somehow it is trying to entice you or even titillate some people with this.
I had no idea what this was going to become.
Not just garbage, but
I don't
like
see how this can work.
badness, immorality.
Yeah, to be clear, the immorality
You're just
isn't the
gonna stand there
BDSM.
gawking?
It's the manipulation,
Yes.
the coercion,
No,
Anastasia.
we don't teach shit here.
This
It's all
time,
valid if it's consensual. Who
No
cares?
rules,
Like,
no punishments,
this is bad.
and
It's
No more
manipulative.
secrets.
Like, I mean, I said it already, but it's like it's manipulative. It's grooming. It's simultaneously like part slave master relationship, part mutual codependency, part what's the word? It part parasocial, and through all this, it somehow also has the horrible vibes
You think
of
you're the first
like
woman who's tried to save him?
toxic boss and employee relationship, but
Yeah.
they're banging in a sex dungeon.
And the thing is, it tiptoes around the fact that this is obviously deeply messed up and unhealthy. It like tacitly tiptoes around, it like touches the edge, it skirts the edge of acknowledging that this is dark and twisted and unhealthy. But because it is so intent on making this a titillating fantasy for its audience, it can't commit to acknowledging how fucked up it is.
Yeah, because that's a turnoff. And it's like, well, I don't think anybody with even a lick of sense is turned on by any of this to begin with, but you know,
But apparently a lot of people don't have sense.
yeah.
And like, to be clear, there's other things wrong with this movie. and probably the books by, like I said, the dialogue, the dialogue is incredibly cheesy, and you can tell it was out of a fan fiction. Not that there's anything inherently wrong with fan fiction, but you know,
Whoever wrote 50 Shades of Grey, I don't remember their name,
I think it's like
Def-
E.L. James or something like that, right?
definitely hit the jackpot of this kind of thing, because there's way better fan fiction out there that's not getting made into fucking multi-million-dollar movie franchises.
I think the other thing as well that I wanted to make a note of, right, is that also was an abuse victim. The movie, and I assume probably the books, also kind of gloss over this entirely too ready. Like Anna kind of half-assedly addresses it at one point, but that's about it. He was a 15-year-old who got taken advantage of by a grown woman who had to have been in her like 30s or 40s at least at that point, and was made into like her submissive,
Intrigued.
basically. And now apparently they're friends. Throwing away control apparently made him feel safe. That's why he's so determined to be the dominant now, guys. He felt safe without control. And, you know,
want
he's
you
clearly
Yeah,
got
because that
issues.
makes sense.
I had
Yeah,
no idea
100%.
what this was going to become.
I felt safe
I don't
without
see
control,
how
so
this
I
can
must be
work.
absolutely in control now. I must be the safety
You're
for
just gonna stand
someone
there
else
gawking?
and feel in
Yes.
danger like a cornered raccoon myself.
Yeah, that's
This
it.
time,
Which
no
is,
rules.
it is both
no
you know,
punishments.
a inconsistency
And
of
No
an
more secrets.
incredible magnitude, and also maybe deal with that a little bit better, other than half-assedly going, hey, that was really fucked up. Oh, we're friends now. Anyway,
Maybe deal with it like at all, instead of just trying to pour all of that into random people you meet who seem like a good mark.
yeah, look, maybe later entries in the franchise deal with it. I don't know. I don't like to say that. One of the things that is kind of frustrating is
tried
that
to save him.
objectively his character makes sense. He was abandoned by his birth mother, has very few memories of her, and the ones that he has are not pleasant. He clearly has issues with his actual mother, like his adoptive mother who raised him, which probably is at least partially related to the fact that her friend groomed him and abused him. And it makes sense that he would develop an issue about needing to control and dominate women as a result of that. That is actually a character that makes a lot of sense on paper. The problem is how it is portrayed beyond that, because it is shown that what should be a normal, healthy kind of relationship is portrayed as a unhealthy coping mechanism for him, which does a disservice to all the people who actually engage in all that. But
Yep.
it also is shown in a romanticized way that means because they're trying to be like hot and titillating, they can't properly address and get into the psychology of it. And it's kind of a shame, because it could be a much better story if they were willing to actually properly get into all that toxicity and psychology of it.
Yeah, like the characters and things aren't even necessarily inherently bad. There's some competence to like the way these pieces are put together, but the lens throws it all out and ruins it, because like there are great story. Some of my favorite stories I've experienced, especially in the last like decade or so, genuinely have stories where there are no good guys. I've enjoyed some stories where every single character is terrible. They're bad people. You can make a story about bad people, and you can even make a story where the audience
Intrigued.
likes some of those bad people. But when you don't acknowledge that them or the things they're doing are bad, when you try to put them in a good light or make them seem like a good
I want you back.
thing, and you treat
had
it
no
like
idea
it's
what this was
serious
gonna
and
become.
genuine and good and
I don't
not
see how this can work.
bad or corruptive, or at the very least absurd, because
You're just gonna stand
sometimes
there
we
gawking?
find the humor in
Yes.
the absurdity of these bad things in media, and you play it
This time,
straight,
No
then it
rules.
seems like you're
No
endorsing it. It
punishments.
seems like you believe that, and it
And
makes it
no more
it's
secrets.
bad.
Yeah, I mean, that is the thing. The issue isn't that the story is portraying this incredibly toxic relationship and these damaged characters who need help. That's not the problem. The problem is that it can't address that properly because it is also trying to make the toxicity and the damage the selling point. That's the fantasy. That's the part that's meant to be titillating. And because of that, they can't do the characters
Do you
they've
think you're the first
created
woman
justice.
Who's tried to save him?
I mean, just think about it. Would you be able to take it seriously if somebody like described a movie to you like with the things that happen in 50 Shades of Grey? Like, oh yeah, he completely took over her life. Oh yeah, he did this. Oh man, she hated it and she was crying, but she still demanded more, and they hurt each other. Isn't that hot? Like nudging you in the ribs, being like, "Wasn't that sexy?" And like, how would you feel if one of your friends did that? Like,
It's like I was on board when I thought this was a horror movie you were describing, and then you did that, and now I'm concerned about the movie, the book, and you.
yeah,
Here's here's the thing though, right? And this is like, however, bolded with ellipses. I don't think the story portrays a healthy romance. I don't think it's well written. It's not. And it's not meant to be. The idea isn't to give us a well written, layered story and characters or to portray this realistically. It's to sell a fantasy. The fantasy of being the ordinary but pretty young woman who a gorgeous, ludicrously wealthy guy who plays the piano and flies a helicopter desperately, ravenously wants, who will get over his dark, broody past and deeply rooted issues for. And that's kind of okay. It's fine. Obviously, in reality, this would be a concerning, unhealthy, and potentially dangerous situation. And it's not like particularly great writing, but it's not reality. It is writing. So I'm not judging anyone who wants to indulge in that fantasy. Yeah, it's not a masterpiece of writing or artistry, but the story does exactly what it sets out to do. And I like to think that by now we can understand that this isn't meant to accurately portray BDSM or relationships or love. It is meant to sell that fantasy. And that's
yeah, it's really more an unfortunate
I had no
side
idea
effect that
what this
so
was
many
gonna
people
become.
took it seriously.
I don't see how
and
this
that
can
is
work.
exactly the perfect jumping point, that line you said there, the unfortunate side
You're just gonna
effects that
stand there
people take
gawking?
this seriously. Because
Yes.
this is a story that is primarily marketed towards
Anastasia.
adult, younger
This
women
time,
mostly, sure, but
no
adult
rules,
women.
no
People
punishments,
who are old enough and well adjusted
and
to hopefully
no more
understand
secrets.
that this is a fantasy and it would be a very bad situation to be in if it was reality.
Unless they're Anna and they haven't grown up in the process of becoming an adult.
Who can indulge in that fantasy safely. And this is why I wanted to start with 50 Shades over Twilight. Because while 50 Shades started as Twilight fanfiction, and you can tell it isn't, and Twilight wasn't written
think you're
and
the first
marketed
woman
with adult
Who's
women
tried
in
to
mind.
save him?
Twilight was aimed primarily at an audience of teenage girls who have not had as much time to develop the understanding that the fantasy and reality are different like that. And it is a story that takes a lot of that same dangerous, possessive behavior and weird power dynamics and all that shit and also romanticizes it. But I would argue it is worse because it is targeting people who are going to internalize that a lot more and think that's good.
I think there's definitely a certain amount of worseness to that. Although I think it does at least help a little bit that this is a much more fictitious world. I think it's how do I put this? I think it's easier for people to get over their Twilight phase than it is if somebody actually had a 50 Shades of Grey phase. if only because Twilight's got vampires and werewolves and psychic monsters and all this goofy shit people know isn't real, and it helps them not take it too seriously. Like, I feel at the very least that everybody who likes Twilight is much more aware that it is a fantasy.
Well, yeah, the fact that it is by definition also it is a fantasy story probably does help at least a little bit put that wedge between reality and fantasy in there. But
But it starts out real bad, and luckily most of my problems with the romances, well, actually no, most of my problems with the romance are Edward. Jacob does some stupid stuff, but he's not that bad. You know,
yeah.
I'm kind of team neither of them. You can do better, Bella, but if I was gonna pick a team, team Jacob, although let's be real, team Alice all the way. Bella should just date Alice. It's
Yeah.
just Bella should just date Alice. She's cool. I like Alice.
She is, I think, inarguably the best character in the stories, it's true.
Yeah, just go chill with Alice. She likes you just as much as Edward, except she's not doing any of that dumb, dark, manipulative shit. And also, like, you can see she already has a functioning positive relationship. So, like, I don't know. Like,
That's one
just
of
go
the
chill with
funniest
Alice.
things is that, like, in the background of this story about this incredibly fucked up relationships, there is multiple healthy goals
Yeah, there's real ones out there just happening where everything is fine.
that are just happening in the background. And I don't know, man. The problem is, I feel like because of the way those stories are written and the movies are portrayed, and because of who the target audience is, I don't know if the target audience has the maturity to differentiate that those are much healthier, normal, functioning relationships because they seem like the end point for where this is going.
Yeah, no, it's pretty rough. I all the way through. And every there's also this weird push and pull where it feels like there has to be a certain amount of toxicity, because every time we run into an occasion where Edward or Jacob or both are not doing anything questionable, suddenly Bella just starts being all the toxicity herself to fill in the gap. As soon as neither of them are being toxic, she starts being toxic. Like, yeah, no, I want to be a vampire. Make me a vampire. Why aren't you making me a vampire? Okay, fine. I love you. I'll marry you if you make me a vampire. And it's like, do you want to be a vampire more than you love him? What's happening now all of a sudden? Why like ugh, I'm gonna be old someday. Like I know
I mean, yeah,
I
I
know
get that
very
that
well
could
the
be
lens.
problematic.
I know very well the lens is supposed to be he's gonna get she's gonna get old. He's not. That sucks. She wants to be together forever, and she also doesn't want to look like an old lady dating a 17-year-old boy. But also, you sure are harping on a lot about how you don't want to get old and you don't want to get ugly and you want to live forever all of a sudden. You're talking about that way more than you're talking about your like feelings in your relationship, Bella.
And you're like really ready to throw away your relationship with your incredibly supportive father for this.
Yeah, like very supportive father who just puts up with everything and keeps going while also being the town's only like sheriff.
And like to be clear, he is clearly you can't even chalk it up to her having daddy issues the same way you can Christian Grey's mommy issues.
No, Bella doesn't have daddy issues or mommy
he's an
issues, really.
amazing parent.
Yeah,
He's
like
great.
Charlie's great, and even though I have some questions about her mom as a person, otherwise her mom seems fine as a mom.
Yeah.
Like her parents aren't a problem. Bella is a problem.
And it is one of those things where you're like, are you sure you're doing this because you're madly in love with this person, or maybe you just really want to be a crazy powerful immortal entity who will never age or anything, because you seem really ready to just throw away your relationship with your father ASAP.
Yeah.
And that's not even the worst behavior we see in this movie. Like from the get-go, we're in this bizarre situation where we have this hundreds of years old guy who's in a school, and I get the point. It's supposed to be like a cover story and all that. But come on, like all of them, all the vampires, well, four of them, uh, four, five of them are intermingling with kids.
Yeah. Also, 17-year-olds like are very capable of physically looking like adults. So being physically 17 doesn't mean you have to be 17. Like this all that means is that you're probably at your physical prime and I you haven't grown proper facial hair yet.
You could probably get away with being quotation marks in your 20s, you would think. But instead, what you get is this centuries old guy goes, and I think is she even 17? Is he 16 or 17 at the start?
I think she's like 16 at the
And
start.
he's sort of goes, "Yep, you smell delicious," and I think that is a perfect starting point.
You smell delicious, and you're the only one whose mind I can't read. 'Cause I can also read minds.
And like, yeah, he like very half-heartedly pushes her away, but that goes out the window
He
so
very half-heartedly
fast.
pushes her away, and then pushes himself through her bedroom window and watches her sleep.
Which is, oh yeah, that's not creepy at all. Speaking of entering people's homes without their consent, I guess that rule of vampirism doesn't apply in this universe.
Yeah, all like that's one of the other funny things. We'll get more into the rest of that part a little bit later, but there is literally nothing vampire about the vampires in Twilight except the fact that they drink blood and don't age.
I mean, there's lots of different like versions of vampiric creatures in folklore. I'm not that bothered by that, to be honest.
No, it doesn't. Oh, well, it bothered me as a teenager because I liked quote unquote real
Okay,
vampires.
yeah, I mean, the
But it
sparkling was
doesn't
kind of
bother me.
weird, but
I could get over the sparkling if it looked like proper sparkling. But besides the fact that I'm like, yeah, the description of them glittering like diamonds is dumb, but also he looks like he actually just kind of looks like he's really sweaty and shiny and someone has a spotlight on his sweat. Like, uh, I have to tell everyone that I had a moment when we were watching the first movie where they're laying on the ground together looking up at the sky, and while the camera is panning over Jacob's shining face, I literally
you mean
just like
Edward.
blurted out or Edward. I just blurted out, he just looks really sweaty. And for some reason my watch heard that and the AI was on and it said, "That sounds really uncomfortable," from my wrist. So that's a moment I had watching Twilight.
Amazing. But yeah, like the very beginning of that relationship is inherently predatory.
Very.
Like not just because he is by definition her natural predator.
Yeah, like literally precision machined to eat and kill her.
And it kind of just gets worse from there. Like we they bring fucking Jacob into the mix because they need the romantic tension. And
Although if they were going to do that, they really should have done that before Bella and Edward were already a couple.
yeah, like that's the thing. They do that and all of a sudden, to be fair, I have been a teenager. I've been in that environment, and absolutely two teenage boys will fight over a girl like that.
Even if one of them already has her.
I shit you not, I have had friends who do that, who were doing that, and the whole time I'm sitting here going, "But dude, they're already together."
What do you're not fighting over, she chose. She made a
It's
choice.
done. But instead, you get these two people who are just being incredibly hostile towards each other for no reason, because this is before he even knows about the vampire thing or the werewolf thing, I think. And they only get progressively more like that. And then somehow that escalates into him fucking off to expose himself as a vampire in the sun in Italy to get murdered by the vampire mafia because apparently that's the only method of suicide he could think of.
To, to be fair, that part was less about the relationship and more about him going, "Oh, she got hurt because of me. I knew I was bad for her. I should just go die."
Yeah, and to be fair, that officially ends their relationship and things start happening with Jacob, kind of, but then she's like hallucinating him.
And also, even then, Bella herself never leans into being interested in Jacob until Jacob is or until Edward is back and they're more thoroughly together, and only then does she start being really awkward and then finally be like, "Fine, I admit it. I love you too." But like that's happening, but like it was always Edward. She was always with Edward. That was like decided and locked in for literally an entire movie before they actually brought Edward in as a player. I mean, Jacob, why do I keep doing that? I know they're generic, but they're not that generic.
It is crazy because like that second movie, she spends the whole time basically leading Jacob on whilst also hallucinating her runaway vampire boyfriend, ex-boyfriend at that point, I guess, and putting herself in increasingly dangerous situations to hallucinate him more. And that's portrayed as this incredibly romantic thing, and it's like, no, she sucks.
Bella's so stupid.
Like, she is simultaneously being incredibly unfair to this person who genuinely cares very deeply about her.
And who's been in her life for a while and is like they're a part of a shared community and even a little bit of like and even like also family friends. Their dads go fishing together and have for years.
And she's doing this dangerous shit to make the hallucinations happen in front of him as well. So she's scaring the shit out of him whilst leading him on. She is clearly very mentally unstable and needs help.
Yeah.
Instead, we're just like Jacob kind of says, "You what the fuck are you doing?" a couple times, but not once does she think I'm hallucinating. Maybe I should seek psychological help.
No, she instead is thinking, well, when he was trying to stay away before, he always showed up to save me when I was in danger. So why don't I just off myself? What if I just jump off this cliff?
Yeah, I'll just keep putting myself in more and more danger because then maybe he'll come back. Like that is dependency to the extreme.
Also, can we say, just for a moment, this is only partially relevant to the romance. The most dangerous thing she did actually wasn't jump off a cliff, and how she is so stupidly, incredibly lucky that the greasy, obnoxious biker who was catcalling that she literally got on the bike and started to ride away with was actually a pretty reasonable and normal person underneath the catcalling who just as soon as she said she wanted to get off, he drove her back and let her off. How incredibly lucky she is that he wasn't a creep or a psycho who was gonna try to drag her home. Like,
The whole thing, she is displaying this incredibly unstable behavior, and the whole time we're being told that this is incredibly romantic and not deeply concerning.
look at the poor thing. She's so heartbroken. She literally doesn't know what to do with herself.
And again, yeah, it's the fantasy of it, I guess, sure, although I don't actually understand how that is particularly portraying the fantasy. But this is a book targeted at teenagers. There were people who were reading those books who were like 12, 13, arguably a little young to be reading those books. But I saw it, plenty of it. And it's portrayed in this way that is like very romanticized. And those are things that do get ingrained in people's heads. And they convince themselves that that is great and they want that in reality. And that then leads to them having some very warped perceptions about romance. And it's not good. And the
You know what I
difference,
just realized?
yeah.
I think I think Twilight's second hand might have caused a lot of damage to men along the way as well. Or boys, I guess I should say in this process, and not even like boys and young men who watched Twilight. I feel like there were probably a lot of quote unquote nice guys being created by the darker, more jealous sides of some young men being twisted by seeing all the young girls not only fantasizing about Edward and Jacob, but like the actual young girls out there when they were in school who were actually like dating bullies and like weird toxic guys. After that, I don't know how much that happened. I'm not going to try to say it was an epidemic, but I feel like that had to have happened because based on the stories I've heard about how nice guys are born and the types of twisted ideas they have about romances and why they're single, I feel like Twilight's a contributor to that.
I mean, I wouldn't be like, I don't want to point the finger and say, you're why there's incels, because that's a bit much. But it's like, yeah, it's gonna, even if it is gonna surely, by proxy, have an impact on people who are not the target audience too, who, you know, hear from the like young girls what they think they want, so then they do that and then they become the problem. It's I mean, it's hard to articulate how problematic I think those books are. Like, and that's just talking about the Roman. There's other problematic things about these books too. Don't even get me started on what it did with an actual existing extant Native American tribe.
Oh, that's a real tribe?
I believe so.
Oh no. I assumed they made I assumed
It's
they made
either,
one up.
if it's not, I think it's at least inspired by. Like, I'm not an expert, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure that that is actually an actual tribe that exists, or at the very least was inspired by one.
Yeah, oof.
And, the very unrealistic body standards it would have contributed, because I mean, yeah, if there's one thing that it contributed that was probably not great for like teenage boys, it would have been, wow, look at how ridiculously ripped those guys are. Everyone should look like that.
Yeah, also, probably I'm pretty sure was pretty rough on the actors because I'm sure Robert Pattinson had it hard as Edward, but Edward's abs aren't nearly as defined as Jacob.
Oh yeah.
I I want anybody who's drooling over Jacob in Twilight to know that that's not healthy. That level of muscle definition, especially in stuff for abs, doesn't come from just working out a lot. That comes from water cutting, which is really bad for you, and actors get forced to do to look buff enough for their roles all the time.
I think things have gotten a little better these days, to be fair, but
But it's bad. Like
yeah.
Hugh Jackman has told stories about the health issues he had from having to play Wolverine. Like it causes problems. These standards are not there's nothing standard about them.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's healthy. There are people who are that jacked or close to that jacked who are relatively healthy. There is healthy
Yeah.
ways to go about that, but what, like, the thing you get with actors like taking on these roles is that is not, they have not worked to that point gradually over like 10, 20 years. They
You,
are
you have to
young
be a
people who
you have to
grind
be like
like
a
mad
career
and diet
bodybuilder.
mad. Yeah.
It has
Uh,
to be your life to look like that the healthy way.
Yeah, we're getting off tangent. We're breaking our rules a bit, but yeah, it's just one of them. Man. There's so many things to pick at about those books that contribute some really unhealthy ideas to young people. And I don't know if it's happened again since something like that targeted specifically towards young people. Maybe now, because it's like what, 15, 16 years after the fact now.
I bet there was, and it just didn't set the world on fire the way Twilight did, so we're not as aware of it.
Yeah, like I'm sure we've gotten better about it as a society, things like that. We have, for the most part, at least in our generation and thereabouts, have gotten a lot better about understanding realistic, healthy standards and things like that and how to portray those in fiction. I mean, again, we did the four of them last week, and it's like the anti this episode.
Oh, it's so good.
And like that's one of the things that is like the perfect contrast to point at that and go, you can portray drama in relationships, things like that, in a completely healthy way. You don't need to do what these stories did.
No, you don't. Not at all.
And it's like the quality of the stories aside, the writing side, that is it's the thing that I keep coming back to is the lens we're looking at these stories through is that they are so reluctant to acknowledge the toxicity. And arguably, I think Twilight is actually worse about it.
Yeah, Twilight, I almost want to say it's both better and worse. Twilight, it helps that Twilight does not take itself as seriously, but it also leans even harder into the dumb, inaccurate, and like sometimes toxic and hurtful like aspects of these relationships.
At least, at least 50 Shades kind of pays lip service to it a little bit. But in Twilight, from start to finish, incredibly unhealthy dynamics are portrayed as deeply romantic. And that, again, has a much younger target audience.
I want to say Twilight is like actually one of the perfect parental advisory movies. Like Twilight genuinely is a movie that I think like young teenagers, especially young teenage girls, should not what anybody younger than like and I would say probably an actual adult should probably have an actual adult with them when they watch the movie to point out the stuff that's nonsense and make sure they don't take it too seriously because again, Twilight doesn't take itself that seriously. The problem is the right young people can take anything seriously, and if they like it, they will.
Yeah, I mean, I think nowadays where it's not the phenomenon it was back then.
That's
Like
true.
it's
It doesn't
probably
have the power it
yeah.
did.
But back then, like I remember because like the first movie came out when I was like 14, maybe 15. I can't remember. It was 2009, 2010. And I remember everyone was obsessed with these movies and these books. And
Yeah, everybody either loved them or hated them. Even some of the haters were still defining themselves by Twilight just by not liking it instead.
I look back at it and so many of the girls I knew back then, and honestly some of the guys too, looked at those stories and were like they were like, yep, they're amazing. They're so deeply romantic. That's what I want. And back then, all I thought was, but they're shit.
I had a similar thing. I was just even more insulated by the fact that I also thought they were shit, but I'll admit I wasn't looking at them very critically at the time. I was too busy being a young guy who liked vampires and being like, that's not what I like real vampire stories. I'm gonna go watch True Blood, and then True Blood has its own problems. So that's great.
It wasn't until I got older and looked back and was like, oh, that was like actually really dangerous influence on all of those young people. Like most of them turned out fine, as far as I know. I don't think any of them were so deeply corrupted by this media they consumed that it fucked up their entire perspective of romance forever. I'm not trying to
No, it's
say
not
that,
that deep, but
but it definitely gave, especially at the time, gave people some bad ideas about what a relationship is supposed to be like.
yeah.
And I'm sure that that stuck for a while. And the thing is, like the media we consume, especially when we're younger, but even as adults, it does shape our views of the world, our belief systems, how we think things should be, what we think we want. And it is important that we can have the media literacy to separate the fantasy and the reality. And people at that age struggle with that.
Come to think of it, I think that actually might be the biggest problem with Twilight is media literacy. Because, again, I had fun watching these movies, but I'm pretty media savvy. I engage in a lot of stories and things all the time, and I have, for the most part, a very easy time separating fact from fiction, and kids don't. I think Twilight might genuinely be a movie series where how enjoyable it can actually be in a non-toxic sense scales with your media literacy because there was a lot of stuff I found funny and a few things I found genuinely impressive in those movies. So I enjoyed watching them, but that's because I was never once for even a moment taking the toxic relationships seriously.
Look, even back then, where I was like, this is all shit, I still watched those movies and was like, yeah, okay, the baseball scene's pretty cool.
The baseball, that's a lot of people's favorite. The baseball's fun.
That was great. But
I burst out laughing when Bella walked into the room with that shitty little desk fan blowing her hair from behind. And Jacob immediately, or Edward, I did it again. Edward saw her and immediately went, oh, and I swear I heard a thump at his desk as a paper floated up in front of him like it was censoring his crotch. And I burst out laughing. That was so funny.
I don't think that was intentional.
I don't care. It was so funny.
We can laugh at it, and I think these days most people would. And we can go, hey, but these bits were cool. But ultimately, like, it's still doing the exact same thing as 50 Shades, where it's portraying some incredibly toxic and, if not toxic, concerning things as deeply romantic. And that wasn't an accident. It was the stories were written that way and the movies were made that way on purpose and aimed at a target audience that it was aimed at on purpose because they knew that they would eat that shit up.
And they
And
did.
and they did. And it probably caused some people to have some very wrong ideas about things. And I kind of don't think that's okay. I compare it to 50 Shades and I'm like, yeah, this is all kinds of fucked up, and it because it's trying to make it sexy, it can't acknowledge properly how fucked up it is. But this, it's a similar situation because it's so deeply trying to convey that this is the fantasy of how romantic all this is. It doesn't acknowledge the really messed up stuff going on in those stories. And when your target audience is young people who are very impressionable, that's like, it leaves a worse taste in my mouth purely because of the lens it is painted with and who that lens was aimed at.
Yeah, it very much so comes from what I'm gonna call the zeitgeist of I'm 14 and this is deep.
And like it's why I look at, again, I look at the four of them and I'm like, this should be required reading.
Just put it in school.
It should be required reading, especially if you've also read these books.
Oh yeah, just make it a pairing like it's your palate cleanser. Like, okay, we know you've read Twilight. Now here's something real. Take a look at this.
It's even got pictures.
It's got pictures for you. This is what healthy relationships look like.
You see how they're talking.
You see how they're talking and they're solving their problems, and then they change and they don't make the same mistakes again? Look at that. Isn't that nice?
Because yeah, that's the other thing. Like, there's no fucking character development into
Bella anti-develops. Bella, for the most part, becomes worse. She actually starts out fine and seeming at least fairly normal and even a little smart and savvy, the way at first she's actually calling Edward out for being creepy and dumb. She just for some reason then immediately pivots into, but I'm into it though. Come here, big boy.
she figures out he's a vampire and is like, bet.
Yeah.
Maybe the predatory creepy behavior is okay, actually.
In fact, like let's not get over the fact that partway through the story when somebody was like what are you, the vampire family's pet? She actually just kind of like shrugged and went, "Yeah, I guess." She didn't argue with being the family pet for the family of vampires.
Oh my god, I'd forgotten that.
And it's so sad because I totally get it because in a lot of ways the rest of them are treating her like a pet they love a whole lot, except Alice. Funny again, Alice. One of the things I like about Alice, and obviously she has the bias of being able to see the future and more or less predict people's actions, but she's one of the few characters who actually feels like she 100% sees the real Bella and she just likes her. There's no caveat, she just likes her.
Yeah.
She just likes her and cares about her and then like hangs out.
Yeah, I mean, even Jasper, who's a little bit kind of like withdrawn and creepy, like most of the family seem a lot more well adjusted.
Yeah, well, Jasper's got a lot going on.
Yeah, he's got
The,
yeah, it's
the way
fine.
he became a vampire is not pretty.
No, no, it's not.
Hey, he's actually he's one of the more like he's one of the characters here more who I'm like, oh, that that's like the real protagonist of a real vampire story.
Yeah.
Like,
And like the thing as well, right, is we've done stories about similar relationships before on this show because we did let the right one in.
that's what I was just thinking of. Yep.
They even have very I refuse to believe that the line, there's a line in fucking Twilight somewhere where he's like, I'm 17, but I've been 17 for a long time. And that is a direct fucking reference to I'm 12, but I have been 12 for a long time from Let the Right One In. I refuse to believe it's a coincidence. But I look at that movie, and even though Oscar and Ellie are much younger than their counterparts, how they handle that relationship and things like that is so much better.
It's so much more real too. That movie makes me want to cry.
Yeah, that movie is like genuinely beautiful art, and then it's like, and then there's Twilight.
And then there's Edward and Jacob, and they don't know how girls work. They don't know how like feelings or relationships work. They're out here doing their best, but not really.
Yeah, and you know what? One of the major differences is, again, is that there is just actual communication between Oscar and Ellie.
They talk.
They talk and they acknowledge the problems inherent in what they have. And it's not necessarily presented as a good thing that Oscar is probably going to become either the new caretaker or become vampirized himself. It's just a thing.
Yeah,
It's so funny to me that that movie exists and came out around the same time.
that is wild.
Most of the time when we come to us like these episodes, I'm like, I could keep going about this story for hours. It's because either I have a deep love for that story or because there's so many layers to it that I could like pick at it for ages. With these two stories, I could keep going on about them for hours, but it would become very repetitive very quickly because they are both very shallow stories and I would just be repeating the same reasons I despise them over and over.
A lot of it boils down to the same thing. Ultimately, I can't say this about 50 Shades of Grey. Twilight doesn't have a huge number of problems, but the problems it has are big. Like, it's ultimately only a couple things wrong, but they're wrong over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we said, the problem isn't that there is toxic or problematic behavior in the stories. The problem is that they present these things in this very romanticized light that prevents them from properly addressing that they're not good. And again, 50 Shades at least pays a lip service to that, but it still could do a lot better. And then Twilight just doesn't acknowledge it at all.
And although I can't pretend I'm not anywhere near as bothered by the objectification of men as I am of the objectification of women. Still a lot of objectification of men in Twilight.
Oh shit, yeah.
Like, I mean, Jacob, once we find out Jacob's a vampire, he's literally never allowed to put a shirt on again. He spends the next like 4 hours of on-screen time in ugly cut-off jean shorts that expose his boxers and no shirt.
Okay, no, you are talking about Jacob, but he's a werewolf, not a vampire. Actually, he's not technically a werewolf if you believe the books.
I mean, he's more like a shapeshifter who turns into a big fuzzy doggo, but
It just so happens that they all only become wolves. But yeah, like that's the other thing with these stories is there's both of them have so much objectification. And at no point really does either story go, hey, objectifying people is bad. Quite the opposite. Both of them have these male characters who objectify the female protagonists quite severely, and it's portrayed as a good thing.
yeah, and again in Twilight, also the objectification it goes both ways. I would say Edward and Jacob are objectified even more.
Yeah.
Not just by her, but like in different ways. Edward and Jacob are actually kind of being objectified by everybody in the story. Edward is like the baby of his family who's not taken that seriously, but also because he can read minds, he's treated like such a big deal by both his family and the Venatori, I think they're called, and all
I
that.
think it is.
The Volturi, yes. And also has Bella just sitting over there being like, "Oh, wow, man, you're really hot." And he's like, "I love you, but I'm bad and you should stay away." And all he gets back is, "Shut up, make me a vampire." And Jacob is being completely ignored by her until the moment he permanently becomes incapable of wearing a shirt, and suddenly she's like constantly hovering her hand inches away from groping him and staring down at his pecs and drooling and being like, "Oh, hey, when did you get here? Hello."
All while stringing him along.
All
Mind
while
you.
stringing him along and being like, "No, I don't love your pet. I don't love you like that."
Just your pecs.
Like, that's rough.
It's not good. It's just not good. And again, to be clear, it is perfectly okay to portray unhealthy things in your stories if you are willing to acknowledge that those things are bad.
Yeah, and
But
it's
it just doesn't.
no, it doesn't, and it's so weird because again, most of there's a ton of examples of normal, healthy, fine relationships, at least in Twilight. It's just not any of the main characters. Like, in fact, Edward's entire family besides him is made up of healthy, functioning relationships that are fine and supportive. Alice and Jasper are great. I keep forgetting her name, but the blonde girl and Emmett are great. Emmett is literally
Rosalie?
just a big yeah, Rosalie and Emmett. Rosalie can be like a little, but that's just because she's taking things seriously that the other characters have gotten over already. She's fine and fun. And Emmett is just a big happy bulldog who loves everybody, especially his girlfriend. And Carlisle and Esme are married and have been married and in love for hundreds of years. It's a really long time. They're great. And then Edward doesn't know how to get a girlfriend and has to cling on to somebody like Bella and do all that toxic stuff while she's doing toxic stuff back at him.
Yep.
Carlisle should be more disappointed that he didn't raise Edward better.
Doing this all the while, keeping fucking Jacob on the line. But it's okay because he imprints on her infant on her infant child later.
Listen, God, that's awful. I don't have a defense for that. Just Jesus, God, man, why? Who thought of that?
If it would have been fine if it wasn't implicit that would become romantic.
And one of the worst parts about it is, like, we were introduced to imprinting in the second movie when we were getting into all the Wolf Boy stuff, and there was no reason they had to bring it back like that or explain it that way, especially when, like, they already established it's not like an inherent part of love. Like, they already established that, like, yeah, as obsessed with Jacob is with Bella, he is in fact not imprinted on her, actually. He's just in love with her and a little obsessed and hormonal. But then they go around and be like, okay, but like, since we didn't do that, let's bring it back later in the worst possible way.
But like, really, that was the only way you could think of resolving the romantic tension. Really, you couldn't just have them process it healthily and decide to just be friends.
What, you couldn't just give Jacob a cool girlfriend and be like, he's fine now?
I fucking hate
It'd
these.
be really
I hate
it'd be
these
really
stories,
easy
man.
for him to get a girlfriend. He can do it anytime he wants.
Like, we've established that. Look at the man. He could do just fine.
Taylor Lautner can do backflips.
Before we start recycling the reasons we hate these stories anymore, I feel like despite our very unobjective dislike, we've at least tried to be objective in our criticisms.
Yeah.
If you like these stories, it's fine. Like, I don't, he doesn't, but you're allowed to. It's fine. Like, I'm not gonna judge you too harshly for enjoying some fiction. I'm not.
Yeah.
I am gonna continue to critique that fiction and question why some of the writing decisions were made and the marketing decisions were made, because I do think that both of these stories in varying ways are deeply problematic. But it is what it is. I think we can call that one there.
Yeah, and there can be things to enjoy. I don't enjoy anything about 50 Shades of Grey, but there's stuff to enjoy about at least Twilight if you can just acknowledge the parts of it that are toxic and not lean into them.
Yeah, if you've enjoyed this, for some reason, you can of course find these episodes both on Google. Well, not Google anymore. That the Google podcast doesn't exist anymore. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, all that stuff, wherever it shows up. You can also find these episodes on YouTube and on my website, radfordwrites.com. On said website, you can also find various blogs and articles and things I write, stories and poetries I write, and also purchase my books, all of which at this point in time do not contain toxic relationships. Of course, you can also find John streaming as Sephir on Twitch, Sephear, and also posting those VODs to YouTube as well.
This will be happening.
I've probably got to write some sort of romance thing for the next one, so that ought to be interesting. But until then, goodbye.
Bye.